Hey guys, happy Friday. Hope you've had a good week. Another busy week in the world of EVs and a lot going on, but let's start now. Okay, it's 11 o'clock and there's a lot to get through. So this week, 8,000 electric cars tested. The UK's largest battery health study just dropped. The answer is not what the scare stories tell you. We'll go through the real numbers. We've also got the UK quietly crossing 2 million registered electric vehicles. 2 million. And I'll tell you what's actually driving that number because it's more interesting than the headline. Then there's the electric Toyota Hilux that's just been launched. £52,000 and 150 miles of range. Orders open in June. We'll work out if that actually makes sense for people. We've got the story of VW quietly cancelling the electric Golf and why that matters more than it sounds, alongside the incoming road charge for EVs that everyone's going to have to deal with in 2028. And we'll finish with a charging story hiding in plain sight. B&Q. Yeah, B&Q. 5 stories, 30 minutes. Let's get going. Okay. Sharing there. Just going to change my screen so you can see it. Okay, battery health. Let's get into this because this is an important one. And I know that there was a study by Electroverse and Auto Trader Insight this week. And one of the great worries and concerns is about battery health in used electric cars. And it's kind of a myth. So let's just get going with it. If there's one thing that puts people off buying a used electric car, it's the battery. The question everyone asks, what if it degrades? What if I end up with a car that won't do its range? What if I'm looking at a 5-figure replacement bill? It's a reasonable question. It's not just a well-informed one. And this week, we get the most comprehensive answer we've had just yet. Generational. They're a specialist in battery condition diagnostics. They're an interesting company, actually, and worth checking out. They've tested more than 8,000 electric vehicles, passenger cars, light commercials, vehicles from 0 to 12 years old, up to 160,000 miles on the clock, 36 manufacturers, the UK's largest used battery electric vehicle study conducted to date. Here's the headline result. Average battery health, state of health across the entire fleet, 95.15%. Let me sit with that for a second. The average across 8,000 electric vehicles, including older ones, including high mileage ones, is 95% of their original capacity. Not 60%, not 70%, 95%. For vehicles that are 8 to 9 years old, so the cars that should theoretically be the scary ones, the median battery capacity is 85%. Manufacturers warrant their batteries to 70% for 8 years or 100,000 miles. The actual average at 8 to 9 years is 85%. That's significantly above the threshold they're legally required to maintain. And here's the thing that's worth understanding. Annual degradation rate across the whole sample came out at 2.3% per year. So a car that's 4 or 5 years old, which is most of what you'd find in the used EV market right now, is sitting in a median state of health of 93.5%. That's not a problem. That's a well-functioning battery. Now, I'm not saying every used EV is fine. There's real variance in the data, and generational are quite clear that the spread is widening as vehicles age. A 10% state of health reading on an older car is rare, but it exists. Used EV battery health still matters, still worth checking. But the average, the actual data from 8,000 live 1,000 cars says the scare story is wrong. And I think this is important because word of mouth is generally what's going on with used EV battery scare stories and people talking about it. What this means practically is if you're looking at a used EV in 2026, average used EV prices are down nearly 10% year on year. Cars that cost £35,000 to £40,000 new 3 or 4 years ago are sitting at around £20,000 right now. And the batteries in the vast majority of them are functioning at 93% or better of their original capacity. If you want to check the specific car you're looking at, ask the dealer for a battery health certificate. Most manufacturers can produce a diagnostic showing current battery capacity as a percentage of original. Anything above 80% is considered healthy. For cars from 2019 onwards, this is pretty standard. Just ask for it. Used EV battery health in the UK in 2026 is genuinely better than the fear suggests. EV battery degradation UK data from 8,000 vehicles says the average is 95%. Used electric car battery life is the biggest myth in the second-hand market right now. That's the finding worth taking away. And I think that's important. Okay, we're going to move on to the 1 million EV number, which is absolutely amazing, actually, or 2 million, sorry, 2 million EVs. So the UK has hit 2 million EVs. That's the headline. In April 2026, 39,000 new battery electric cars were registered in the UK. That's a 59% increase on April last year. BEVs, battery electric vehicles, hit 26.2% market share. More than 1 in 4 new cars sold in April was electric. And cumulatively, the UK has now passed 2 million registered battery electric vehicles on the road. 2 million is a proper milestone. It's the kind of number that changes the question from will this happen to how fast? And when you look at April's 59% year-on-year growth, there's something real happening here. But I want to give you the full picture because the SMMT, that's the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, they actually revised their 2026 forecast down this week. They were expecting 28.5% market share this year. They've cut that to 26.8%. And they've pointed to the ZEV mandate as a pressure the market's feeling more than it's responding to. What that means in plain English, manufacturers have to sell a certain percentage of electric cars or face fines. So some of what we're seeing in April, that 59% growth, is manufacturers working hard to hit their compliance numbers. They're discounting, they're pushing deals, and it's working in the sense that the cars are being registered. Whether those buyers were going to make the switch anyway, or whether they've been pulled forward by the incentives is harder to unpick. What I can tell you is this. There's another story underneath the mandate numbers. Renault reported this week that EV inquiries have risen 42% since the start of the Iran conflict at the end of February. Petrol prices are up. People are doing the maths. The economics of running an electric car look different when you've just paid £1.90 a litre. Renault says EVs now make up nearly half of their total UK registrations, 49%. That's not mandate pressure. That's people making a decision based on running costs. So what's actually driving the 2 million? Probably both things at once. Mandate pressure bringing supplies and deals. Rising fuel costs bring real demand. And in terms of what it means for you, more EVs on the road means more used EVs coming, more charging infrastructure justified, more service networks, more everything. 2 million isn't the destination. It's the point where it stops being a niche. One more figure from the SMMT I want to flag. Electrified vehicles overall, BEVs, plug-in hybrids, full hybrids, hit 53.2% of all new registrations in April, more than half. That's not a small thing. That's the market moving. UK EV market share 2026 is heading towards 27%. UK EV sales April 2026 show the trajectory. 2 million electric cars UK is the milestone. Those are the numbers worth knowing. Okay, we're into story 3, the electric Hilux. This is a new Toyota electric vehicle that's just come out. I'm going to show you a picture of it here on the stage. So in fact, I'll show it full screen for a minute, switch myself off, which probably will be quite enjoyable for you all. There it is. It's the Toyota Hilux battery electric vehicle. It's interesting because this is a pickup. These things have been used all over the world in extreme environments. You know, they're all over Africa and so on. So getting a battery electric vehicle version of a heavy car like this that does a lot of towing and you throw a lot of stuff into is an interesting idea. Let's talk a little bit about what it can do and so on. So the legend goes battery electric vehicle, right? One of the most recognizable vehicles ever made, 50 years old as a nameplate, sold in more than 140 countries. The one they drove off a pier on Top Gear and it still started, that one. It just went electric. Orders open in June, priced with the plug-in van grant because it qualifies as a commercial vehicle, £52,845. Without the grant, £57,845. That grant is worth £5,000 and it applies here because the Hilux is classified as a light commercial vehicle. It's not classed as a car. So that's a big saving. The powertrain is a 59.2 kilowatt hour battery, front and rear electric motors, permanent all-wheel drive. WLTP range, and this is where we need to have a conversation, is 150 miles. 150 miles. But let me just show you the graphic that gives more detail on this car, because it's an important one to have in here. I'll just remove that and add that to stage so you can see it. And let me put myself up here. Actually, that full graphic is probably better. I'll just pop myself back in there. Okay. If I want to be honest with you about what 150 mile range means, because that's the easy thing would be to say it's not good enough and to move on. But the situation's a bit more complicated than that. If you're a farmer or a tradesperson who leaves the depot or the farm every morning and comes back at the end of the day, and your round trip is under 120 miles, then 150 WLTP, call it 110 or 120 real world, might actually work for you. Maybe you'll get less in the winter. Charge it overnight, go again in the morning. If the pattern fits, the range is acceptable. So the Toyota Hilux at 150 miles battery electric vehicle range is questionable. If you're doing long runs, towing heavy loads, going to remote sites, working across a wide area, then 150 miles is a problem. Towing capacity is 1,600 kilograms. Payload is 715 kilos. For context, the diesel version of the same truck tows 3,500 kilograms and carries 1,000 kilograms of payload. You're getting roughly half the capability. The diesel is staying in the range, by the way, and it's expected to be the volume seller for them. What Toyota deserve credit for here is the off-road system. Multi-terrain select is still there. All-wheel drive is standard across the range. Electric motors give you the extraordinary torque control at low speeds, actually better suited to slow technical off-roading than diesel in some ways. The electric Hilux is not a watered-down version of the off-road capability, it's just range limited. The DC charging speed is rated as best in class for this segment, so when you do need to rapid charge, it's quick. That helps on longer days. My honest verdict is that it's a serious vehicle for a specific use case. It doesn't replace the diesel Hilux for heavy long distance work. It wasn't designed to, but if you've got a fleet of service vehicles doing short daily rounds, if you're operating from a fixed base, if you're a council or a utility company trying to electrify your commercial fleet, the electric Toyota Hilux UK makes sense. Electric pickup truck UK 2026 is a growing category. The Toyota Hilux BEV UK is the most credible entry yet. Electric Toyota Hilux price in the UK after grant is £52,845. That's the number to think about. I think it's a nice car. We know it's a really, really tough car. Commercial fleets are going to save a fortune getting hold of the Toyota Hilux BEV if they can charge overnight and if they've got fixed depot. I think that's the important number to look at here. And if you've got access to fast kilowatt DC charging somewhere, then the car is going to charge quickly for you. So maybe you can make use of it, but really think about the destination charging and how you're going to use a vehicle like that if you're looking at it for a commercial opportunity. Right, next up is segment 4, and we've got the squeeze. The VW Golf EV and the Road Charge. I think this is quite an interesting story. It's the Golf EV that won't happen and the Road Charge that will happen. Two stories that sit together, and I want to treat them as a pair because one is about a product decision and one is about a policy decision. And together, they tell you something about the squeeze that's coming in the EV market. Story 1, Volkswagen confirmed this week that there will be no electric Golf in 2028. The ID.3 Neo is coming. We talked about it about 3 weeks ago. So if you look back in the podcast streams or the lives, you'll see that we did a lead story on the ID.3 Neo that's coming. It's got better range, sorted software, finally a car that fulfills the original promise of the VW platform. But the Golf badge is going electric in 2028. Not happening. VW says they're well set with their existing electric range. I'll tell you why this matters. The Golf is the car that made mass market car buying make sense for generations of British drivers. It's the reference point. When people who haven't decided about EVs picture themselves in an electric car, a lot of them are picturing something the size and shape of a Golf. If Volkswagen had put the Golf badge on an electric car, proper Golf, same name, that would have been a signal moment, a cultural permission slip, if you like. Not doing it says something. It says VW aren't sure the market's ready for the Golf to exist purely as an EV, or that the ID.3 Neo is close enough that they don't want to cannibalize it. Either way, the Golf as an electric icon for the mass market is being deferred. That's a missed opportunity for normalization. And we really thought they were heading down that route with the Golf EV before. You can pick used Golf EVs up actually relatively cheaply now. They're on the used market and they've been around for a while, but they have limited range. But worth a look if you don't need many miles. Story 2 that links to this, we think, is the EVED that's coming. This is the mileage-based road charge for electric vehicles, announced in the autumn budget and arriving April 2028. 3 pence per mile for fully electric cars, 1.5 pence per mile for plug-in hybrids. For a typical UK driver doing 8,500 miles a year, roughly £255 annually, it's not nothing. But put it in context, the average petrol car driver is currently paying somewhere between £900 and £1,200 a year in fuel duty alone, embedded in the petrol pump price every time you fill up. The OBR estimates the EVD will cost the average EV driver about a fifth of that. Is it fair? That depends on your starting point. If you think road costs should be borne by users in proportion to how much they use the roads, then a mileage charge is actually more progressive than fuel duty. Someone who does 15,000 miles pays more than someone who does 3,000 miles. That's logical. If you think EV should still be incentivized to accelerate the transition, then adding a charge now when only 26% of new cars are electric and the transition is still fragile feels premature. The OBR forecast that the EVED will result in nearly 440,000 fewer EVs sold by 2031. Some of that will be offset by other measures, but 440,000 is a significant number. What I think is worth saying is this: road tax for electric cars coming back was always inevitable. Roads cost money to build and maintain. EV drivers use roads. This was coming. The question was when and how. 3 pence per mile in 2028 is a fairly soft entry point for the scheme. The real question is what happens to that rate in 2030, 2032, 2035, as the fleet continues to electrify and the government needs to replace the fuel duty revenue it's losing. That's the one to watch. The EVED rate in 2028 is the headline. The escalation trajectory after 2028 is the story. VW Golf Electric UK is not happening in 2028. EVED road charge for electric cars arrives April 2028 at 3p per mile. Electric car road tax UK 2028 means roughly £255 a year for a typical driver. Those are the numbers. Right. I'm going to come back to me now because I want to talk about B&Q, who have, let me just go full screen on me a minute. I'll actually just stick on the live rates so that you can have a good look at what the rotating rates are doing. I'll share that tab instead, and you can just have a look through what the club rates are at the moment for lease deals. That's we're publishing rates every month for our club members. Thank you to the new members that have joined this month. I've seen that the numbers are going up, which is great, and we're getting quite a few sign-ups. So keep an eye out, keep an eye on the rates and see what they're doing for public charging and so on. Okay. Let's go to the B&Q story. So B&Q gets £11 million of EV chargers. Quick one. This flew under the radar this week, and I think it deserves a mention. Raw Charging and B&Q announced an £11 million rollout of EV charge points across B&Q car parks nationwide. That's significant. Why? Because B&Q is not a destination in the same way as a motorway service station. It's a dwell time location. You go, you spend 45 minutes to an hour, you come out. That's plenty of time to add 80 to 100 miles of range while you're picking up paint and some decking screws. That is exactly the category of charging that makes electric car ownership work for people without home charging. The retail park is the gap in the charging network that nobody really talks about. Motorway charging gets all the attention, and rightfully so. So that's where the anxiety sits on long journeys. But the lived reality of charging for most EV drivers isn't on the motorway. It's all the places you already go. The supermarket, the gym, the DIY store. £11 million across B&Q's estate is a meaningful investment. Raw Charging have been building out their retail park network. This is one of the bigger commitments in that category. It won't transform the picture overnight, but it's another strand in the web, and the web is getting thicker. EV charging at B&Q UK, Raw Charging UK retail park rollout. That's the one to watch. We've had some numbers explode on a short on the EV Charging Bootcamp YouTube channel this week, and it's talking about supermarket charging. I went and filmed a charger down in Devon that was sitting, it was an old Pod Point charger, sitting in a Sainsbury's, or no, in a Tesco car park, actually, I think at the time, in North Devon. And it looked like it hadn't been used in years. So I did a film. It's got 7 kilowatt charging on it. And everyone is commenting on it saying, why would you have 7 kilowatt charging at a destination where you're going in for an hour? Why would you have charging when you probably have charging at home if you live in North Devon, or you have enough space for off-street parking? So you're probably going to charge at home. And why did they take away all the free Pod Point charging when they put it in originally? So there's no incentive to drive up. It doesn't have a cable. It's not tethered. So you have to get the cable out of your car, plug it into the Pod Point charger, and then go and do your shopping for 45 minutes or an hour. These B&Q chargers, depending on their spec and their speed, and I'm looking forward to finding out more about what Raw Charging are doing with B&Q, because that's a massive investment, are going to be interesting, and I hope are going to be more based on destination charging and dwell time at charge points, because that's the key thing around using these electric cars. It's like you need to plug your phone in every now and again. If it's getting a bit low, you need to plug your car in, and you use it throughout the day. People talk about it like it's kind of not carrying water with you. A lot of people carry water now, but traditionally you would go and get water whenever you needed it. If you got thirsty, you didn't carry a massive bottle of water around. You were able to go and top up somewhere. Generally, that's what you can do if you're lucky enough to live where we live. And it's the same with EVs. You top up when you can. So getting a quick squirt of DC in there and adding 100 miles range sorts you out for the week. And for all of you that don't have off-street parking, which is a huge number of people and are being crippled by the fact that DC charging is too expensive, hopefully some of this can work. The companies are thinking about incentivizing around what they do for DC charging at destination, getting a good rate, and hopefully they won't be just trying to sell you into an app continually just in order to get a few lower rates on charging. Okay, so let's go to Q&A. Question 1 was, if used EV prices are falling, should I wait longer for buying? Which is a good question. Short answer is the rate of decline is slowing. Used EV prices were falling sharply in 2023 and 2024. Some models lost 40 to 50% in 3 years. The adjustment is mostly behind us now. Average prices are down about 10% year on year into 2026, but analysts are talking about stabilization, not continued free fall. The main pressure was a wave of 2020 to 2022 lease returns hitting the market simultaneously. That wave is moving through. The sweet spot right now is 3 to 4 year old, mainstream, brand above 80% battery state of health, with remaining manufacturer warranty. That gets you a car that costs 35 to 40k new for around 18 to 22k. That window will close soon. So look for 20 to 2022 lease returns. They're coming through. And our lead story today was about battery health being at 95%. So get a battery certificate, check the car, should be fine. Question 2. Does the EVED mean buying an EV is now a worst financial decision? The running cost numbers still work. £255 a year extra in 2028 against energy saving of around £1,000 to £1,500 per year petrol. Depending on your mileage and how you charge means you're still well ahead. Where it gets more complicated is if you're doing high mileage and mostly rapid charging publicly. Home charging means that remains the financial engine of EV ownership. If you charge mostly at home overnight, the numbers still hold. Question 3. Is the electric Hilux going to sell? Honestly, in volume, no, I wouldn't have thought so. It's kind of not practical enough. And judging by the comments we get across our shorts channels, people aren't keen. The diesel stays the dominant version, but in fleet, in utilities and council and trade operations with short predictable rounds, yes, that's the market it's aimed at. And it's a market worth having. Question 4. When the SMMT cut its EV forecast, does that mean things are slowing down? A cut from 28.5% to 26.8% isn't a collapse. It's a recalibration. The market is still growing. It just grew a bit more slowly in Q1 than expected. The broader trend is still upward. April at 26.2% is still higher than almost any month 2 years ago. Slower than hoped, but not going backwards. That's it. That's your week in EV. 2 million on the road, batteries that actually last, a Hilux that plugs in, a Golf that doesn't, and B&Q becoming a charging stop. Before I go, the Primetime EV Club, which you can see members rates on right now on the screen. If you want the cheapest public charging rates every month, the best lease deals we can find, and a weekly digest of what's actually worth knowing, that's the club. It's free to join. There's no catches. Link in the description below. primetimeev.com/club, or just drop me an email to club@primetimeev.com and I'll get you added. You can also find the show as a podcast, same content, take it with you. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and on YouTube. We're on all of them and the link's in the description. Thanks ever so much for watching. Keep an eye out for charging deals. Keep an eye out for what's going on with your council, with allowance on whether you can run a cable across your street, whether you can get a grant for putting a cable into a gully and running that. You won't necessarily get it. You have to go via an approved installer, which is important. It's on the government website to find the approved installers. But there are opportunities for people that don't have charging at home. More and more, they're going to make sure that you get access to at least what's happening with the public charging network. And I hope that VAT will get reduced and prices will begin to come down soon. Thanks for watching. See you next Friday, same time, 11 o'clock. Have a great weekend and thank you. Cheers, guys.